I hate you. You selfish. You're a monster.
It's a suitcase. I've been walking past it for about a week now, and I walk my dog over there, and she keeps stopping, and she sniff a little too long. I pulled it up, unzipped it. I couldn't really see, and I opened it up, head.
Officers later found a second shallow grave nearby, with another suitcase containing the body of a second young girl.
Police say they executed a search warrant on the 700 block of East 162nd Street last night, in the same area where the girls' bodies were found. That resulted in a 28-year-old woman being arrested.
There's 2 young children that are gone. Their whole future is gone. We have no idea what happened, what they went through toward the end of their lives.
Look at this field in Cleveland, Ohio. It's the evening of Monday, March 2nd, 2026, and a man is walking his dog through it. It is not a field he has been able to reach in weeks. Snow has kept the ground covered, kept people out, kept whatever is under it, exactly where it was. The snow is starting to give way now. The dog notices something before the man does. Dogs usually do. There's a change in the way the animal moves, a pull toward one particular patch of ground, and the man follows it the way anyone follows a dog that suddenly seems certain about something. What he finds is a suitcase. It is 6 o'clock in the evening, an ordinary hour for a walk, in a field that is not remarkable in any way except for the fact that almost nobody has been able to walk through it recently. Officers respond to a report of a suspected body. Inside the suitcase, they find one. While they're still working that scene, still measuring, still documenting, a second suitcase turns up. A second body inside it. This is not one discovery. It is 2, arriving close enough together that the first one barely has time to register before the second one lands on top of it. The field sits near East 162nd Street and Midland Avenue in Cleveland's South Collinwood neighborhood. It is not a park, not a landmark, not a place with a name most people outside the immediate area would recognize. It is the kind of unremarkable open ground that exists at the edge of a lot of residential blocks, close enough to houses to be reachable on foot, quiet enough in winter that a person could visit it without being seen doing so. That combination is not incidental. A field like this does not announce itself as a place where something could be hidden. That is exactly what makes it one. 2 girls are found in the suitcases in that field. They are Amor Wilson, 10 years old, and Mila Chatman, 8, half-sisters. They are also, both of them, daughters of the same woman, Aliyah Henderson, 28. Whatever else this case turns out to explain, it starts there, with a man's dog pulling him toward ground that snow had kept sealed, for longer than anyone can say. That is the detail this case is built around, and it is worth being precise about why. Not the suitcases themselves, exactly, though those matter. Not even the 2 bodies, though obviously that is the center of everything that follows. The detail is the mechanism. These children were found because a season changed, because snow that had covered a field for an unknown stretch of time finally thinned out enough for a dog to catch a scent it could not have caught 2 weeks earlier. Discovery here did not come from an investigation. It came from weather and an animal's nose, doing what a person walking the same ground might have missed entirely. What isn't yet known here matters as much as what is. The exact period before March 2nd, how long Amor and Mila had already been gone, who last saw them, whether anyone had reported them missing. None of it is settled in the public record as it currently stands. What is known is what the medical examiner would eventually find months later, and what that finding implies about time. A body does not show signs of malnutrition after a single missed meal. Whatever happened to these 2 girls did not happen in an instant. It happened across a stretch of time long enough to leave that specific clinical mark, and short enough, apparently, that no one outside that household noticed, or at least no one who noticed did anything that reached a police report before March. 2 days after the field, on March 4th, Aliyah Henderson is arrested. Body cam footage of that arrest exists and has been released.
Indictment. You're looking at new video of Aliyah Henderson being booked into the Cuyahoga County Jail for allegedly murdering her daughters, 10-year-old Amor Wilson and 8-year-old Mila Chatman, and burying them in suitcases. Their bodies were found last week in Cleveland's Collinwood neighborhood. That case is now being presented to a grand jury.
She is booked. She is later arraigned. She pleads not guilty. 2 days is not a long window between a discovery and an arrest. It suggests investigators moved quickly once the bodies were identified, likely working backward from the victims themselves to the household they came from, rather than building a case slowly from an unknown suspect outward. That is a detail about the pace of the investigation, not a fact about what evidence they had. The public record at this stage does not lay out exactly what led detectives to Henderson specifically, only how quickly they arrived there once the girls in the suitcases had names. A Cuyahoga County grand jury indicts her on a charge list long enough that it is worth simply stating it plainly, without embellishment, because the list itself communicates the scale of what prosecutors believe happened here. 6 counts of aggravated murder, 4 counts of murder, 6 counts of kidnapping, 4 counts of felonious assault, 3 counts of child endangering, 1 count of tampering with evidence, 2 counts of gross abuse of a corpse. Bond is set at $2 million. That is not a charge sheet built around a single bad night. Multiple counts across multiple categories involving 2 separate victims describes something that unfolded, that had stages, that involved decisions made more than once. The exact shape of those stages is still not public. The charges tell you the state believes there were several. 2 of those counts sit apart from the rest in what they describe. Gross abuse of a corpse is not a charge about causing a death. It is a charge about what happened afterward, about how a body was treated once a life had already ended. 2 separate counts of it, 1 for each girl, point toward the suitcases themselves, toward the fact that these were not bodies left where they fell, but bodies that were, at some point, packed, moved, and placed in a field weeks or months before anyone found them. The charge doesn't require further description of what that involved. It's enough that the state considered it serious enough to file separately from the murders themselves. Then comes the wait. 4 months. The bodies are found in early March. It is not until July 17th that the Cuyahoga County Medical Examiner's Office is able to publicly state a cause of death. And when it comes, the finding is deliberately, clinically imprecise. Homicide by unspecified means, with malnutrition. That phrase is doing exactly what it sounds like it's doing. The driest language available for saying that whatever caused these 2 deaths wasn't simple enough, or wasn't clear enough from what remained, to reduce to one method. Beside that admission of uncertainty sits the one thing the office was certain enough to include anyway: malnutrition. A word that doesn't describe a moment. It describes a duration. This is the turn in this case, and like the last one, it does not arrive as a new witness or a dramatic reveal. It arrives as a medical finding 4 months late that quietly reshapes what the crime scene in that field actually was. A field with 2 suitcases stopped being simply the place 2 bodies were left. It became the endpoint of something that had clearly been happening for a while, before anyone thought to look. What hasn't been established deserves to be named as clearly as what has. The specific timeline of the weeks or months before March 2nd, who, if anyone, had contact with Amor and Mila during that period, whether a school, a relative, a neighbor, anyone, had reason to notice something and didn't, or noticed and didn't act in a way that reached the record. What can be said is that this gap is one of the case's central unresolved facts, not a footnote to it. As of the most recent check on this case, no trial date has been confirmed in the public record. Henderson remains held on the $2 million bond set after her indictment, awaiting a legal process that, 4 months out, had not yet produced a hearing date beyond what has already occurred. $2 million is not a bond most defendants can post regardless of the underlying facts. A Cuyahoga County judge setting it at that level, on top of a 26-count indictment, reflects how the court itself is weighing both the severity of the charges and the risk of Henderson not appearing if released. What can be said without qualification is fixed, whatever a courtroom eventually does with it. On March 2nd, a man walking his dog through a Cleveland field, one he hadn't been able to walk through for weeks because of snow, found a suitcase. And then, while officers were still processing that discovery, a second one. Inside were the bodies of Amor Wilson, 10, and Mila Chatman, 8, half-sisters, daughters of the same mother. 2 days later, that mother, Aliyah Henderson, was arrested and has since been indicted on 26 counts that include aggravated murder, kidnapping, felonious assault, child endangering, tampering with evidence, and gross abuse of a corpse for both children. Set beside that is the part carried only by people whose job is to describe what they cannot yet prove. A medical examiner's office, 4 months after the discovery, stating a cause of death only in the vaguest terms available to it, unspecified means, alongside a finding of malnutrition that speaks to time rather than to a single act. And past both of those sits what nobody has closed: how long Amor and Mila were actually gone before that field gave them up. Who, if anyone, saw signs along the way and said nothing, or saw nothing at all. What unspecified means becomes, if it ever becomes anything more specific, in a courtroom instead of a coroner's report. The snow is gone from that field now. It melted the way snow does, without any particular urgency, without knowing what it had been covering. What it uncovered will end up decided in a courtroom eventually, on a timeline nobody outside Cuyahoga County can predict. What it will not undo is the number of weeks or months that passed in between, time that belonged, for a while, only to 2 girls, and whoever else was in that house with them, and to no one else at all. A dog walk is, for almost everyone who has ever taken one, the least eventful part of a day. It happens on autopilot, along a route the body knows before the mind has caught up. That is what makes this case sit the way it does. Nothing about the walk itself was built for this. The field was there, the way it always had been, and it kept its silence for as long as the weather let it, until an animal that had no idea what it was looking for found it anyway.